listened to the episode with you and your dad from a couple weeks ago. I listened to it by myself, and then me and my dad had like an hour drive today, so I put it on for him, and we listened to it again. So
Oh,
it was kind of cool to get your dynamic with your dad, and I was just kind of thinking about how the similarities and differences between kind of the two relationships. Pretty interesting.
it is interesting. And those episodes are they're different than the most of them, where we do the interview. I do interviews with him every so often, like where we'll both be interviewing somebody, but that's interesting. So you could see sort of some similarities and some contrasts for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
what did you what did you see that reminded you of it?
Well, I think your dad and my dad are probably similar ages. My dad's I think 67, going to be 68 this summer, and just some of the things your dad said just kind of remind me of the way my dad looks at life, and then you're similar to my age, so it kind of our
Yeah,
thoughts were kind of in parallel.
it's true.
Um,
Yeah, you guys are both a little bit younger. Yeah, like
yeah.
I'm almost 41 and he's like 75. So,
Okay. It's not huge, but
but yeah, like politically and
yeah.
it's my dad is I um interesting. But it sounds like you guys get on well. Yeah, from what you said, it sounds like you guys have a very good energy.
Yeah, I think we do. It's an energy where like this morning I forget, I get a little amped up sometimes, and I was explaining something to him and I was raising my voice, but uh it's not in a bad way, but it's just kind of we can be honest and let things go to a level where you wouldn't if you were in an office with someone you weren't related to. um so I can kind of get a little animated, and he can too, but he's usually a little more cooler than I am. But yeah, it's a give and take there.
Do you get aggravated like you know I think my dad is brilliant, and I also think that he does have a decently open mind. At the same time, there's certain ways he just has done things for 50 years, and I just want makes it pisses me off when he won't. I mean, it's a different business, like, but for instance, like there's things in our business, sort of I've studied a lot of negotiation and like what they what the people I've studies have said is you want to try to get the other person to name price first,
Hmm.
for
Hmm.
instance. My dad has been doing it for 50 years where he has just come in with the price, and I go, you don't know what the price is, you don't even know what they might say, like you don't know. And it's just kind of like, well, this is the way he's always done it, and he'll try a little bit, but it's hard, but at the same time, like, do you find this way with your dad? Like, I find me and unlike you, we do have a few employees, and we'll all be thinking he's crazy, like, what the fuck, how can you do, and then he'll totally turn out like we were all idiots and like he was totally right.
Yeah, yeah. There are those days. Yep, I have those. Yeah, I'll be working on something and it'll be frustrating me, and then I'll take it up to him and talk through it with him, and usually he'll say something, and I'll say that's stupid. That's totally unrelated to what I'm talking about. Then it'll kind of like sit with me for a little bit, and I'll be like, oh yeah, that's what it was. And it might not be what he said, but like he just kind of switched me into a different track.
like
And
like like can you give me an example?
uh yeah, if I'm having a problem with a part, say a guide bushing, is acting up or something, he'll say, did you check that drill? And I say, no, it's not that drill. It's got to be something else. And then it'll at least kick me over into checking all the tools and making sure, I didn't overlook something. And so yeah, more than anything, it's just it kind of someone that understands the process and can kind of just walk me through the checklist again. When I get frustrated and I just like throw everything out, he'll kind of bring me back and like, all right, let's go through it. And
because he has a perspective.
yeah, he doesn't get as worked up short term as I do. I'll be working on something for an hour and I still can't get it and I get mad. And then he'll, he has that longer time horizon than I do. So he'll say, well, look at it tomorrow or whatever and think about it. And so it's nice for that balance. And it works the same way because we got a vapor degreaser on loan and he was setting it up. And the units on the machine were in Fahrenheit, and he had done all his math in Celsius because the solvent the spec sheet was in Celsius. And I was like, you can't do that, because nothing was working. Like the machine wasn't happy with it. And then so you did all your math in Celsius. 1 Fahrenheit and 1 Celsius are like twice as much. So we kind of. It goes both ways.
Well, hey, let me ask you about this. And some of this may make it into the interview, even though I haven't done my like official introduction, but this is just really interesting to talk about. One of the things I want to talk a lot about actually in the interview is the dynamic of working in such a small family setting.
Sure.
Well, I suppose your wife is involved. So do you feel like when it's just you and your dad, like do you wish there was a little more variety in there as far as like just what if you're tired of somebody? What if you're looking for some other sort of sounding board? Or what if, I mean, it's kind of like it's all you got is you two. So how do you sometimes feel like, oh, I need something else. I need something else here.
I'd say my personality is such that I could work all day by myself and doesn't bother me at all. So the way we the way we started was we were in 900 square feet in kind of the first like shop space that we had. And all of Dad's finishing equipment was on one side and all the CNCs was just one at the beginning, was on the other side. And we kind of work across from each other and we'd help each other, take over where we could. And we sort of had this like nonverbal, work relationship where we just kind of knew what the other one was working on and we were very close that way. And then about 3 years ago, we built onto the shop and we built a room over the other shop, so that all his finishing equipment went upstairs and I was pretty much down on the ground floor and he was upstairs. And we're kind of coming to realize that at that point, a lot of our continuous improvement and not constant bouncing of ideas off each other kind of slowed. And we're kind of trying to get that back because we've just kind of had our heads down working. And we're noticing that things aren't we're not making the gains that we used to make in terms of solving problems and fixing things.
Because you're literally on 2 different floors.
Right. And when things pop up, we're not there to bounce it off each other. Just a set of stairs away is enough to kind of separate us, which is nice in the sense that we have our own space and we aren't on top of each other like we were. I mean, it was pretty tight. Um, it got to the point before he moved upstairs that, you know, when someone wanted to get to the door, we had to make sure the other one wasn't in one of the aisles blocking you. So it was pretty tight.
900 square feet.
Yeah, we would have had, let me think here, three citizens and 2 mills, and a blast cabinet, and a Crest wash system, and 2 benches, 2 work benches in that much space. So it was packed in there, and then we spread out again when he moved his stuff out, and I added a bunch of CNCs to my area. So yeah, our space efficiency is pretty high, but with that comes a little bit of planning. You got to make sure no one's standing in your way when you're walking around.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. And now everything is totally different. You know, my dad, he doesn't really come into the office very much at all because he's, you know, sheltering in place. So once in a great while, today he actually came in for, you know, 5 minutes or something to sign something. But there is a different connection when you're, I mean, it's still look, everybody's talking about all this, the connection when you're on video, whether you're in the same room, and there is something that you lose when the presence is gone.
Sure.
You know.
Sure.
All right. Well, let's some of this may edit itself in, but let's just try to start. We'll go a little linearly now.
Okay.
And so first, to introduce you, I want to just make sure I have everything perfect. Dan Rudolph, co-owner and founder of Rudolph Micro.
Yep.
Okay. And where are you guys located again?
We are in East Earle, Pennsylvania, which is near Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
East
Earle is our town, yeah.
East Earle. Okay. I'm not going to write out all of Pennsylvania because I can never remember how it's spelled anyway. All right. Fantastic. Okay. This is the one mulligan I get in the whole thing. I am honored to be with Dan Rudolph, co-owner and founder of Rudolph Micro. They are a Swiss shop, citizen shop in East Earle, Pennsylvania. Welcome to the show, Dan. It's really great to have you.
Hey, thank you, Noah, for having me. It's good to be on. Big fan of listening to a couple episodes and excited to talk to you.
Awesome. It's funny, the small world of this industry and how you get turned on from one to the next. And I just interviewed somebody else about Swiss machines, and they said, "Oh, well, you got to meet Dan. You got to meet Danny." So here we are. So first, let's just give people like the real brief summary of what Rudolph Micro does, and then I'm going to get a little bit of, the quick version of your story of how you got into it, and then we're gonna dissect Rudolph Micro a little bit.
Sure.
So what do you guys make? What are you running?
So we produce medical device components. So mainly stainless steel and titanium components. We use Citizen Swiss lathes for that, and we have a total of 8 right now. probably adding a few here in the next year. We also have a Haas mini mill and a robo drill. And then we have some support equipment. We have a couple universal robots and then an assortment of finishing and wash systems for cleaning the parts before we send them to our customers.
Mm-hmm. And you specialize in smaller stuff.
Yeah, we as we were getting started, we decided that doing the smaller work, since we're just a 2-person shop when we were started, and with not a whole lot of intention to add employees, we decided that if we were in the micro side of things, that lends itself well to small equipment, smaller inventories, and just an overall kind of less demanding environment in terms of space and equipment and inventory and things of that nature.
And that turned out to be true?
Yeah, very much so. We do, like I said, we have 8 CNC Swiss machines, and they're all fit into a fairly small shop building that we have. The bulk of the equipment's in about 900 square feet.
Wow.
And we're growing into we have another 900 that's available for machinery in terms of the cement floor. And then we have about 900 square feet for finishing space. That's on a second floor. So we have a couple robots upstairs that do blast finishing and deburring. And then we have our wash systems and inspection upstairs as well.
Interesting. And this is for specifically for eye surgery?
Yeah, so it just so happens that a lot of our local customers are in the eye surgery field. So they do contract manufacturing, or they're an OEM for surgical supplies.
Okay. And so you're 36 years old?
Correct.
Okay. So give me the brief summary of how you got into this, and you're working with your dad. So how did this all come to be?
Yeah. So growing up, my dad was always very industrious. He would go to work early before I woke up, and he was a supervisor at a Swiss machining department for an eye surgery OEM. And he actually set up the department. He was hired to kind of get their Swiss operations started. And he had various experience prior to that. So he worked very hard to get all that set up and running. And then I didn't really understand that at the time. I didn't really know what he did. But in the evenings, then he had a small foundry that was sort of his hobby. So we did brass casting, and after work, I'd go along with him to work in the foundry, and mainly just playing Hot Wheels in the sand half the time. But I kind of picked up a lot of that and kind of formed a good working relationship with him. And he would teach me, various tasks, a lot of sweeping up and shoveling sand, but nothing wrong with that either. And then over time, after high school, I went to Penn State for industrial engineering. And I got to know the professor that oversaw the foundry program there. So I kind of went in that direction and did some internships and worked in a couple foundries. And then my first job after college was as a quality engineer or foundry engineer at a foundry in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And I worked there for about 2 years. I enjoyed it, but it was heading in a role where I was going to end up being a supervisor of like a early, like 3 a.m. foundry crew. And I was like, this is not what I want to do. So kind of around that time, kind of the opportunity to form something with my dad kind of cropped back up. We kept talking about it.
You had talked about it over time?
Yeah, it was always something that we saw as an opportunity because um, through his network, there seemed to be an availability of demand for machine components. Um, you know, that industry has grown, and it's been busy since, since it's started in the 90s. So it was always kind of on the table as an opportunity. So we kind of noodled it over, and then finally we at some point, I kind of don't remember what made us take the plunge, but we got talking to the citizen dealer, and we're just like, yeah, let's get one in and let's get something started. Um, a
Why did
little
you
bit.
choose? Why did you choose Citizen rather than one of the others?
Yeah, so our citizen dealer is not very far from us, probably about 15-minute drive from our shop. And like I said, since my dad had a relationship
Ah,
with
yes.
the citizen dealer as he started that department up, it was right there, and
That just made sense because
it
that's
was
what
it
you
was a
know.
perfect fit. Yeah.
Yeah.
So um, so we bought a Citizen A20, and this was 2009. Which was not like great times. So like the dealer was very happy to find a machine to sell. Um, so yeah, it was like this kind of has to work. But um,
So did you learn to operate the machine from your dad?
kind of. Well, back actually going back to high school, um, he bought an older L16 Citizen L16
Mm-hmm.
that was for sale, and put it in our garage when we this was before he lives at the shop that we have now. This was in just like in a residential garage. So I picked up kind of the basics of how to program it and how to set it up, and he had a couple buddies from work that would come over and kind of coach me up on it. It was very interesting at the time because I was sitting through, pre-calc and trig and those math classes, and I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. And then suddenly, like, you're looking at a CNC control and a part drawing, you're like, oh, this is what this is for. So
Wow.
it kind of clicked that switch in my head that, like, oh yeah, all this math I'm learning is very useful. Um,
Interesting.
which really kind of got me going because I'd always been into computers and I liked math, I enjoyed it, but I never really saw the connection. And then CNCs, they brought the computers, they brought the math, they brought making stuff. It kind of all came together for me. And I was always fascinated by machines, just any kind of machine. I enjoy operating, really. And that was at the foundry. That was kind of part of the thing too. We had some automatic molding machines that were really fascinating to watch. I enjoyed being around them. So I think a Swiss CNC is the perfect fit because it's complicated, a lot of things going on, a lot of moving parts, a lot of math, a lot of programming. So it all kind of came together. He isn't a very he's not very into the actual operation side. He's more of the supervisory role, getting the team together to make the parts versus doing the making of the parts. So that's kind of my role. Is I run the CNCs, and then he oversees part quality, making sure that the parts look good, getting them cleaned up. Any other operations that need to go on, he'll develop the process, passivation, cleaning, blasting, all that sort of thing. He's very good at taking the desired output and working back to what you need to do to get to that point.
But you're more you want your hands literally hands on the machine.
Absolutely.
That's one of the things that makes you tick.
Yeah. Yeah. I love production. I love running the machines. I like setting them up. Um, More than anything, I do that all day, and I have been doing it all day for 10 years now, and I absolutely enjoy it.
What do you okay, so you make parts that are point 0.1 millimeters?
Yeah, our smallest part that we've turned to date has been in that range of 0.1 millimeters, or about 4,000ths of a diameter, 4,000ths of an inch. And
You're cutting
yeah,
out.
the part.
You're just hang on for a second. You're cutting out. Maybe is it your reception or is it my reception? Hold on, let me 1 second. I'm changing my internet thing. Okay. Dan?
Yeah, you there?
Yeah, I'm wondering if it's going to be any better now. Okay. No, my internet connection is unstable, it's saying. All right. I can hear you okay. Can you hear me okay?
Okay. Yeah, you're sounding good to me.
Okay. So back up. You were just talking about the size of the parts, the small parts.
Yeah. So we the smallest part we've run production on is has a diameter of about 4,000ths or 0.1 millimeters. So that's kind of the smallest, but we've done a lot of work with thin wall, like 2,000ths thick wall parts. It's kind of hard to describe sometimes how small they are, but we drill holes that are 7-8 thousandths in diameter.
Wow.
In stainless steel or in titanium, and the problems that you run into are never the same. They're always a little bit different on each part.
Right. Well, it must be an entirely different skill set than somebody running parts that are half an inch. I mean,
yeah, I think it is, but I think to some extent it's imagining a half-inch part just in a smaller world. You're the forces are different, but they're all relative. So if you have a small part, a lot of times what can happen when you have a small part is that they just break off the bar stock while you're turning them, and you need to think about what's actually going on there. Well, you can't take 1,000 per rev when your part's only 4,000. You got to scale your feed rate down. You got to go slower and imagine what's happening to the part, versus imagining it's a 1/4 inch part that you can hog on like any other thing. So I think a lot of that is a mind shift, but it's not any more difficult once you wrap your head around the scale of what you're working on. That and being conservative. What I like to do when I'm working on very small parts is break it up. I'll turn a couple features and then stop the machine and see what's going on. Sometimes I'll program the sub-spindle to come in and grab it just to make sure we actually can find the part. A lot of the parts, once they're in the sub-spindle, you need to take a razor blade in and fish them out with a razor blade because they're that small.
Yeah. Do you have like a magnet to pick them up with?
So a lot of the small stuff, there's just an air blow through the sub-spindle. So we'll pick it off with a sub-spindle and then open the collet and blow air back through it, and then push them into little jars or into tubes.
Wow.
So yeah, when you get to that size, a lot of it is.
It's hard for me to really imagine. I mean, you have to have. Is the whole. I should have studied this before the interview, but like, I mean, is there a big like magnifier around the machine or?
No. Yeah, it's all about, you make a part, find it, hopefully it's in the sub-spindle, take it out and then put it on your vision system or whatever you're using to measure them, and try to identify what is going on. And yeah, I think, and that's definitely been a skill over time that I've developed, is like, when I look at a part, I can kind of tell what happened to it, now that I have that experience. So I can, if there's rub marks in certain spots, well, I know the cutoff tool's not very sharp because it's trying to pull it back out of the sub-spindle collet. So there's kind of some key things you start to realize after you do a few jobs like that. And then sometimes your parts just stop showing up and you realize, oh, your front turn's dull and it's breaking off the bar stock while you're turning it. And then there's no part there when the sub-spindle comes in because it broke off. So then you got to work backwards and figure out, how do I troubleshoot that? Well, sometimes you just take all the tools out and put them back in and start over. That's a thing.
You have a very interesting environment you work in. So very small parts, small machines, small work area. You work so the shop is in the house where your parents live?
So my parents live in an old stone farmhouse. It's probably about 200 years old, and it used to be a working farm, but the barn was, I guess, demolished or whatever. And instead of the barn, they have two about 900 square foot garage type buildings, just cinder block buildings. That used to be garages. So it's not connected, and it's not technically it's an industrial zoned area in town, which was kind of the attractiveness for Dad to have bought that. So over time we set up shop in one of the garages, and then we grew into the other one, and then the next year we connected the two with a little building in between. And then we built a second floor on the one. So we've kind of filled out the garages, but essentially we're still working out of two garages. Yeah.
Okay. And he lives like right next to it then?
Yep. Across the driveway. Yep.
How far away do you live?
I live about 5 miles away. Yeah. So I can, over the summer, I can ride my bike or usually drive. Yeah.
And you work with your wife as well.
Yeah, so about 2 years ago, I want to say, my wife was a CPA. She had been a CPA for about 10 or 12 years. And just kind of as our lives have changed, she kind of was done being a CPA. You do enough tax seasons, January to April, and she would work 60, 70 hours. And yeah, and she just was kind of done. And that's pretty common with some accountants. They just, if you don't want to be a partner, which she didn't want to be a partner, you just can be done at some point. So as Dad and I were busier and busier in the shop, we thought it would be maybe a good time to try get her coached up on what he does. That way, when he wants to spend less time as he gets closer to retirement age, maybe she'll be ready to kind of lead it up with me, and we kind of take it over together.
Yeah.
But what we've done instead was just got busier and busier, and now we're all very busy. So the three of us pretty much work.
So she does the books and does and all alone, but just by herself. Yeah.
Yep. So she'll do the accounting and invoicing and all that sort of stuff. With my dad, he always used to do that before she came on. So they'll kind of work together on some of that stuff. And then her kind of role is to shadow and support the work that he does. So she can become an expert on that till the time that he's ready to do something else. Whereas I'm pretty much going to remain doing all the machining work myself for the foreseeable future.
Okay. I see. It's just the three of you.
Mm-hmm.
How do you replace yourself?
I don't know. Like why do I need to be replaced?
I mean, what if you wanted to just go on vacation? What if something happened to you? What if you just decided you needed to focus on some other aspect of the business. How are you able to do it with the amount of people you have? It's really, I see it like the way you describe it. It sounds like you have some great advantages from it. But I feel like that you must have some good strategies for being able to do all. I mean, look, you're a father. You told me before this interview that you're you're doing homeschooling for your kids.
Well, my wife is.
Okay, well, she is, but
yeah, she is.
so what are you, how do you do it? From automation, from lights out, from
Yeah.
what's your secret?
Yeah, so I think early on when my father and I were beginning this, I think for whatever reason, we just didn't want to be people managers. We like doing the work, and I think I think we recognize that, and I don't know that everyone recognizes that at the same point. Um, we would go around to some other machine shops in the area that would help us when we were getting started. Before we had a mill, we had a job come in that needed a couple secondary operations in a mill, and we would explain to the owner of the other shop, what we were doing, and they'd ask, how many employees? Well, we don't have any employees. Okay, well, don't get any. You don't want any. They're just headaches.
They
Like,
are.
and it's like,
Sure.
okay, like you kind of laugh it off. You're like, yeah, well, everyone wants employees, because then you don't have to do the work. But the more we thought about it, it's like, yeah, no, he's right. Like, it's just more kind of headaches that we don't need. So everything we looked at, we kind of look at as where can we automate it, and the citizens fall right into that, where a lot of the time the parts are done when they come off. So that's automated. Sometimes they need secondary operations. For instance, we do a couple part numbers that go through our mills after they come off the Swiss for some geometry that you could probably do in one setup on a Swiss, but just kind of the way we've gotten to the point where we do it on the A20, and then we bring it off to a robo drill that has a robot to load the part. To kind of get the cycle times to work out in a reasonable way, it just makes sense to do it that way. So we have a universal robot that will load the robo drill for 10 hours at a time. So I can just set the parts up in about 5 minutes, and it will work for 10 hours without me. So we've looked at every opportunity we can, and the jobs that we bid, we really look at in terms of how can we automate it, and if we can't, we don't bid it, or we bid it in a way that we probably won't get it.
Meaning what? If you were able to, if it was worth enough, maybe you would get an employee, but it better be
or my time is, my time and my dad's time is the resource we're selling. So that needs to be, the way we look at things.
Yeah.
It's easy to forget that and to bid too much. And we learned that, I think last year, we really, in 2020, we really took as much as we could get in, because what's going to go on, we don't know where this is all going to go. Whereas we've reframed that for 2021, where we're really not taking much in outside of existing customers. So
because you have enough.
We have enough. We have more than enough, and we need to get better at the stuff we're doing currently. So we're really being pretty stingy about what we let in the door at this point, which is a change for us, because from starting out, when you are twiddling your thumbs all day because you're waiting for POs to come in, you really hate turning stuff away, and it's been really a mental shift for me, because I generally do all the quoting, so I see this stuff, and I'll decide whether I want to do it or not. I don't even really, Dad and I rarely discuss that anymore. But then between my wife and him, they're like, just stop quoting stuff because, you got plenty of work to do.
Yeah.
And we have some continuous improvement things that we need to work on, and I think we'll be fine.
What's the number one thing you want to work on?
Um, the number one thing is there's a lot of rough edges around some of the processes where in medical device, you need to make sure parts are clean and free of any burrs and loose material. And generally what that ends up meaning is that you're spending a lot of time under a microscope, either removing burrs or looking for burrs. So I think we need to tighten up our machining processes on some parts, which will allow us to reduce the time under the microscope.
Yeah.
It sounds simple, but there's a few parts that we've been struggling with. We know how to address the issue, so it's almost quicker to do what we've been doing, but that's becoming unscalable because we're doing more and more. So we need to go back to the machining process itself and begin to solve some of those problems. And some of that is upgrading equipment, so we have more modern equipment that can do it more efficiently than the process we first developed.
Don't you find that if you're so busy, like running the shop, that it doesn't, then how do you have time to go and come up with these solutions?
Yeah, I mean that's right where we're at on some of those things. It's and they don't get done, and that's one of the things we'll
Sorry,
get.
I won't bust your balls.
No, but
Same
it's
thing.
like
Everybody's working on that.
that'll be like, we got to get this part, and that's like I want to get it fixed too, but I'm doing this other thing, and that creates tension there, because he deals with the part that has a burr in it, and I know I don't want to give it to him with the burr in it, but I don't have a way to solve it. So we kind of go round and round, and
but you're both in agreement. You don't want to get some other person into the mix. That's just going to make it even more annoying.
right. It's you got to solve the problem, not patch over it with someone just to help you get the crap work done, and just do a better job on the work is the key there.
Okay. I mean, I find it's hard because you want somebody to come and do bullshit for you that you don't want to do, but then you have to tell them how to do it.
Yeah, and I don't do very good with that, and it probably that leads into why we don't have any employees, is because till I explain it to you, I could have done it, and like that is the way I look at everything, and I think the reason my wife helping us is has been successful is because she knows the way I think, and she'll jump in and do things. I can explain it to her once, and then we're good. And there's probably not a lot of people you can do that with.
Yeah.
I have her running the UR robots, and she does a lot of the shipping paperwork and stuff that I used to do shipping paperwork while I was running machines. And like,
not a good idea.
Yeah, no, stuff would get screwed up constantly. And I'm like, as soon as she came on, it was like, okay, you got to do shipping because you can sit down and focus, and I can't. So help me with this. And now that stuff just gets done, and it's really been helpful for me.
So do you have any advice for if somebody else is listening to this or reading about this or whatever and goes, yeah, me and one other person, we want to start our own shop and just do it all by ourselves with no employees. Do you have any advice for somebody to do that?
Yeah, I think about that a lot because I'm very thankful to have a partner and my dad to work with. I don't know how you do it by yourself. I think there are guys out there that do it or are attempting to do it or do it by themselves.
Oh,
I
it's
Yeah,
terrible.
I can't wrap my head around that. Just the minimum level for me is at least one other person, but
Yeah.
um, I think at that point you can divide work into your strong suits and your weak suits, and that's helpful. Um, but I think between my dad and I, it's been a game of how much can we do, just the two of us. Um, we set our constraints, and then we try to kind of outperform them.
Yeah.
So we have very limited space in terms of square footage, and then we just have, you know, me and him and now my wife. So we kind of cheated on the people part, but um, the constraint of not a lot of space is an interesting one I think about too, because um, if we had a big shop, I'd spend all my time walking around. So
Yeah.
it's a blessing to have everything crammed in. It doesn't feel that way all the time, but it on some level it allows us to do what we do because um, you can't have 10,000 square feet and one person. You know, it's all relative
Yeah.
uh, to that.
It seems like to me um, that your secret is constraints.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah,
Constrain yourself how big of a part you want, constrain yourself how many people you want, constrain yourself about how much work you can take. And by doing that, it enables you to, I mean, science shows people do better things when they have limitations versus
absolutely. Yeah, and
versus if you
that's
have an unlimited amount of room or
yeah, yeah. It's something that I don't know that we set out thinking of. Like we didn't say like let's, but when it came down to it, it was, you know, we're in the shop we're in. Let's make the best of it. We have the people we have. Let's make the best of it, and it kind of all goes together then to be um, kind of your signature. You know, the guys in the garage making the little parts. Yeah, but you know, it all came together for us.
very interesting. A couple other questions. What is something interesting you learned last week?
I was listening to your other shows and you mentioned that. I'm like, I should probably think of something. Kind of slipped my mind. I've been looking. We want to fix up our house, and I heard you were doing some renovations too. So I've been like, my head's been just in like different things we can do to our deck lately. So I've been looking at putting a roof over our deck. So that's kind of where I've been
Oh,
at mentally
interesting.
lately. So
And how on earth are you going to have any time when you live in your machine shop?
that's the thing. I got to
No,
find a
no pun
contractor
intended.
to.
Yeah.
So yeah, we have a contractor. My dad hired a contractor to do a couple things around the shop. So I gotta get his number and get him over to my house. Yeah,
That sounds like a good thing to that is a very important thing to be learning. And a good contractor is, man, that's tough to find.
absolutely. Yeah, that's kind of one of the things on Instagram. I spend some time on there,
Oh yeah, I
and
was going to ask you about that. Yeah, before we wrap it up, I will.
yeah, and it's fun to find. In all occupations, there's people on there that are passionate about what they do. There's a lot of machinists on there that are super into you know, highlighting their great work, but there's carpenters on there. I had a guy that detailed my car this last week, and he just posts, you know, transformations of these cars that come in that are filthy and shines them up,
Really?
and man, they look great. And I just love seeing that level of passion for whatever you're doing. And I like to think that's kind of reflects what I do on Instagram.
Yeah, so you and it's I totally I totally need, most people say, oh, I need to do less social media. I probably totally need to do more social media. Like I just try to avoid it. I finally looked at your Instagram and I realized, yeah, we were followers of your
Okay.
Instagram. We have somebody that does it for us.
Okay.
But yeah, very cool stuff. And so and you say that that's helped you get clients?
Yeah, there's been a few customers that I've met, actually a couple that are close by, randomly, that you hook up on there and you end up not being too far away from each other. But more than anything, it's just other like-minded people that are into machining or into Swiss, or uh, just doing their own thing. A lot of guys that are just in their garage working on stuff. Um, Even though I work primarily by myself and with my dad and my wife, a lot of that coworker type camaraderie is on there for me. A couple guys that I message with, it's probably more akin to hanging out during break, in the break room, which is good. I don't
I
think
feel
I
like
need.
me too. I totally miss out on that. I feel like, I mean,
Yeah,
we have some people we work with, but you must feel that way a little bit, a little
yeah,
isolated.
yeah. But like I said, I like working by myself. I don't, there's always that one guy in the shop that's practical joking half the time and messing with you. I'm glad I don't have to put up with that. But at the same time, it's nice to have, a couple jokes here and there that if you don't want to do it, you can put your phone away and just work. But if you want
That's
to do it, you
interesting.
can get
So
it out.
it gives you a little bit of a community.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's good. Do you have anything else you'd like to say to the people of the world?
I don't think so.
I really appreciate it. This was so much fun.
Yeah,
Uh,
thanks for having me.
yeah. And yeah, I look forward to seeing what you think. You'll have to tune in tomorrow. We got do you know who Mark Kleka is?
Uh, I think I think
He's
I have messaged with his son. I think Matt. Is that right?
Yeah, he does have a son, yeah, who's in the
Yeah.
business. Yeah.
Yep. I think I messaged with him. Yeah.
Yeah, I interviewed him. He does he's doing the interview tomorrow.
Yeah. I just saw that pop up on my phone, so I'll listen to that tomorrow morning.
Oh yeah, I guess it. Oh yeah, I still have to write the. I'm like, I have to write the summary. That thing isn't over yet. No, yeah, no, but it's up. Okay, great. Well, um, yeah, it would be great sometime. Hopefully, when all this is over, we could meet in person somewhere at something, or I
Absolutely.
don't know. It'd
Yep.
be good to keep in touch. So,
Yeah.
anyways, I'll let you know when this comes out. Probably it'll be the week after this coming one, and
Okay.
I'll bug you for a good photograph.
Sounds good. I
All right.
can probably give you something passable. I don't know about good.
You have a good night. Thanks so
Hey,
much.
thanks, Noah. Have a good evening.